Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast by CommQuest. My name is Bill. If you have never heard our program before, what we try to do here is give the message that recovery is possible. And this can be recovery from any type of journey that you're on, whether it's mental health, addiction, sometimes it's trauma, and sometimes people just get overwhelmed by life, and that's okay. A lot of times we have people on the program who share their personal journey, and sometimes we have people on the program who are providers or just want to assist our community by helping individuals who have been on some kind of let's say, a very rough journey. Today we have a little bit of both. With us today is Robert Cox. Robert is a veteran, USA retired, and he is a counselor for us here at CommQuest. Robert, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you. All right. We also have Tammi A. Gaynor, and do you just want me to refer to you as Tammi? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, Tammi. Tammi is from Pegasus Farm Equestrian Center, and she is the director there. And also, and this is kind of what we're going to focus on today, she is with the Military Family Center, and she is the program's director there. Okay, Robert, let's start with you first. Can you give us a brief description, just generally speaking, of your role here at CommQuest as a counselor, and what are some of the types of issues that you deal with most as a counselor?
Right. I'm a counselor at CommQuest, also out at Military Family Center in Louisville. I do mental health and alcohol and drug counseling. I do a lot of trauma therapy, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which deals a lot with trauma as well. I do have additional training in gambling, and I am also an instructor for a Crisis Prevention Institute for nonviolent crisis intervention.
That is absolutely fantastic. Tammi, can you briefly talk about the connection between horses and what is it about them that just makes people feel better?
Well, I think first of all, they're such unique creatures. And what we are finding essentially with the veterans and our first responders and active military is the correlation of the horse's world and the horse's dynamics. Their world is very linear, very structured, and the veterans find comfort in that in their military backgrounds.
Interesting. Robert, as a veteran and as a counselor, how does your service experience help you when you are dealing with veterans? My guess is that it gives you a measure of trust with veterans. I think that maybe just trust is an important issue. Is that correct? Absolutely.
When you're talking to somebody about some issues that you have, you really want to know that that person you're talking to really understands what you went through. And when you're a veteran that's been through combat deployments yourself, and you're talking to somebody that has issues or PTSD or some anxiety or depression because of some of the experiences they've had in the service, it makes them feel a lot more comfortable talking to you, that you really understand what they're going through.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the case. In some respects, I know I've had veterans in my family who have had PTSD, and it seems a lot of times that they just presume that someone who is not in the military or hasn't been in the military is not going to understand their issues, and that isolates them. Is that something that they should be doing, or maybe they should give people around them, their loved ones, a little bit more credit? Because it really seems like it isolates them to feel that way.
It can. One of the reasons is if you've served on active duty, for example, or in the National Guard, it's a tight-knit community, like Tammi was saying earlier. when you're on active duty, you're on a post, you're working with these people, you're sleeping around these people, you're engaging with community events with their family members in it, and you really get to know each other on a more personal level. And then whenever you go to combat, you're relying on the person on the left and right to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And when you get out of the military and you're out here, you don't have that camaraderie. You don't have that closeness with people where as you did in the service. So that's the uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
Right. And then whenever you go out to something like the Military Family Center and you're around other veterans that had the same or real similar issues that you do, and then you have that connection with the horses, you have that connection with the fellow service members, and then you have counseling or other people that understands and knows, intimately knows what you went through, then it can be really beneficial.
No matter what you've been through, whether it's a bad divorce, a lot of times you have to talk to somebody who has been down that road to fully grasp it. Tammi, let me go to you on this. Is there something about, the dynamic between human and horse that is special when it comes to what veterans need?
Yes, I think the horses and their intuitive skills, and then also, as Robert talked about, that close-knit horses in the wild, and then also, their instinctual is to be in a close-knit group. They cannot survive without each other.
Oh, interesting.
And we often talk about, the difference between a dog and a horse. A dog will leave safety for food. A horse will never leave safety for food. They would rather starve than for safety. And they depend on the herd. And the herd dynamics in order to survive in the wild. And even though we domesticate them, that instinct is still within them. So when we put a veteran and a horse together, the veteran can really, as we talk about the herd dynamics and how the horse sees the world, they really, especially, that hits home with them, and they understand that. And so the partnership between the horse and the veteran becomes a close-knit group. And even again, as I said, the horse is domesticated. They still, in their world, when they're working with that veteran, they're still depending on that veteran to keep them safe.
Yeah.
In whatever environment. And what we've seen is at Military Family Center, as our groups continue to grow, as our group continues to grow, we predominantly have programming on Wednesday afternoons, all day Wednesday, essentially. That close-knit, we've just seen it through the years become, closer and closer. And, even as Robert talked about, him being a veteran himself, with many of our ladies and gentlemen who come in, that maybe counseling has, a negative connotation to it, or that's not something, they feel they need. But just by Robert, just sitting down and having a conversation with them, they immediately, the connection, oh, you were in the Army. Oh, well, I was in the Navy, and then, a little bit of joking, but that camaraderie happens so much quicker.
Yes. Yeah.
And regardless of whether they move to clinical counseling with Robert, but just the consultation, and the sitting down and having conversation with him.
I've been told, and maybe you can expand on this a little bit, but I've been told, getting back to a dog will readily give its affections, where a horse, you kind of have to earn that horse's trust.
Earn that horse's respect.
Yes. And that's part of, it's more like building a relationship.
Correct.
That's very, very interesting. Robert, I'm sure you've had associations with veterans who have gone through some of this interaction with horses and built these relationships with these magnificent animals here at the Military Family Center. What differences do you notice in them as you're dealing with them on your level as a counselor and a veteran?
As a veteran, it's like like a sigh of relief, knowing you're in a safe space and knowing they're not going to be judged because of the stuff that you talk about on the clinical side and the consultation side, and also with the horses, because the issues that you go through are not. It's not a stigma like this. Some society people say, oh, you have PTSD or you have depression because you've been in combat or something like that. It's more like she was talking about earlier, so close knit where people feel comfortable around one another, especially when you start building rapport with them, with them and me, with the staff there. They feel more relaxed to be able to talk about their life's problems, to be able to start working through them in a positive way where it won't affect them so as much as it normally would. Yeah. If they didn't talk to somebody. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Let's talk a little bit about stigma, because I always want to touch on that. Getting back to what happened with my family, my dad in particular, he had PTSD. And he not only was a veteran, but he also had a lot of violence in his childhood. And here again, getting back to, he died when I was pretty young. One of the regrets that I have, and there's nothing I could do about it, was I never had a chance to talk to my dad as an adult, as an independent adult. Had he lived longer, I would kind of hope that he would want to have talked to me. But he never did. And he never talked to anybody in our family. That's getting back to what I said earlier. He would keep it all to himself. And I can't help but think that the stigma, with the people that he worked with, he probably didn't want them to know that he was having issues because of his background. Stigma can get in the way of so many things with mental health, addiction, and all these other things. Has the stigma around what we normally call now PTSD, has it gotten better? Are people starting to understand it more, let's say in the wake of Vietnam?
Oh, absolutely. Since that time frame to now, it seems to have gotten better. There is still some out there with somebody with PTSD. For example, you talk about your father. A lot of times, that's not uncommon. A lot of times people don't like talking about their own mental health issues with their family because they have never been through or haven't been through what caused them to have PTSD. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to maybe traumatize that person or talk about it, because then they're going to have a lot of questions that really dig into it. There may be some stuff that he's not ready or she is not ready to talk about. And when you're engaging with other people who's been through what you've been through, it's a little different. So, for example, if you was in a service and you started to talk with him, if he was here, he might have felt a little bit more comfortable to talk to you about it.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's something that, I can always try to second guess, but I'll never know. But yeah, that's very, obviously it's sad because he caused himself, and I don't mean he caused it himself, but he just went through so many things. And back then, my dad died in 1983. This was before the knowledge and before the things that were available that they are today.
Right. And so with the stigma, let's talk about stigma again, the stigma of the VA and how VA was run before to where how they're morphing now, and then having the opportunities like Military Family Center now, that where back then it wasn't there, is so much better for veterans now to be able to engage with.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Military Family Center. And Tammi, let's just kind of give an overview of what that organization does and how can people find out more about it?
Okay, so our main program is the horses, the equestrian services. Within that program, veteran, first responder, active military can come in. They start by working with the horses on the ground, unmounted, learn about the horses' world, how they see it, safety, that such. We spend about maybe 6 to 8 weeks there. And then after that, they really have a choice. And the choice is theirs if they want to continue with unmounted lessons, or we have riding. Some of our people decide to ride, or we just started, actually had our first carriage driving lesson last week with our veterans. So
wow.
We've got a little carriage and a little Haflinger cross that just adds another aspect to it. We do our weekly, but we also do one-time workshops, 3 to 4 hour workshops with veteran organizations. So we spend time doing that. We have family events. We typically do those once a month on a Friday evening. And that's one of the things that we really wanted to do at the Military Family Center is to open activities to families, to the veterans and their families. So we have done archery shoot. I think there's a pumpkin archery shoot scheduled for November. We've done, just fires, open movie night, game night, craft night. So each month has a different theme. In the summer, we do a kids camp for children and grandchildren of veterans. And then we also, throughout the year, on one evening a month, we'll do kids and horses in the evening. So that is also a family event, focusing on the kids and the horses together, but the parents are definitely involved. And as far as finding out all of the services that we do provide, Facebook is our best mode of marketing.
Okay.
So it's the Military Family Center. And again, besides the horses, we have the counseling services, but we also have a large exercise program that we run in the basement. We have a full gym, and it is expanded out into the garage, a double garage that's heated. So we have a gentleman, Dr. Brandon Pullock, with Walsh University. We have contracted with him. He is our exercise science. So he develops an individualized exercise program with someone, and then we are open 5 days a week for them to come in and exercise on their own or with Robert. He's there a couple days a week. And all of the services are at no cost to the veterans. We are privately funded by some amazing foundations in Stark County, Summit, and surrounding counties. So it is at no cost.
That's obviously just absolutely incredible, because that is so needed. And I'm going to go back, to you, Robert. I know that, getting back to my dad, if we could go back in time, there's so many people like him that would just simply not reach out for help. Whether it be his, feeling of his strength or his whatever, that he didn't want to admit that he had an issue. We could go on and speculate all day long. There's so many people out there, not just veterans, but people in general who need help. But they won't admit to themselves that they might need a little help. And that's one of the sad things about my dad. If I could have talked to him as an adult and gotten him some help, and he'd gotten some relief, and why didn't you do this sooner? And I never had that moment with him. What would you say to people out there? November is the month of Veterans Day, and there's so many people out there who may not necessarily be a veteran, but they have someone like I did in their family. And what would you say to them to make them say, you know what, I think I'm going to need help? And how can they reach out to do that?
Well, one, you get engaged with the people that they're familiar with, fellow service members. One of the ways of doing it is coming out on Wednesday at the Military Family Center. You can come in, sit down, have a cup of coffee. Tammi and Missy
Diana.
Yes, Missy and Diana. We'll give them a tour of the facilities. You get to be able to sit down and talk to fellow veterans, and then say, okay, there is other people out there that suffer with the same things I do. Maybe I can sit and talk about it.
Yeah. Are there any types of resources that you would like to mention specifically that people can reach out for?
Oh, absolutely. Military Family Center, foremost. I love that place. I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to work with Miss Tammi and Diane and Missy. It's been an amazing journey for me working there and helping other people. Also, SAM Center out in Massillon, which is a serving area military. They provide a whole bunch of resources for veterans. Also, the Veteran Service Office and Veteran Service Commission here on Cleveland Avenue.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you both, a question about what message of hope that you may have for our listeners in general, certainly veterans included, but just everyone. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning it is because at this time, obviously, there's still a lot of problems in our area with addiction, mental health, and all these other types of things. But I can't help but notice that on the news, if you watch the news, there's a lot of talk about war again, and some of it can be very frightening when they're talking about weapons of mass destruction. And I can't believe that doesn't have an effect not only on veterans but on people in general. So I guess, Tammi, I'll start with you. What message of hope would you have for people who sometimes feel hopeless?
I think just building support around you. When you're going through difficult times, as you said, we tend to keep that to ourselves, but, finding others that we can trust in, we can confide in, and building the support around us, whether it be a few people or it be an entire village of people.
Yeah. Robert?
You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to suffer in silence anymore. Reach out and talk to people, just like Tammi was talking about.
Wow. Obviously, such a major issue, the journeys of veterans. It is a very complex, multi-layered issue. There are no easy answers for everyone, but there are paths to help, and there's certainly hope. And that's what we say here at CommQuest, that hope happens here. Hope happens everywhere if you give it a chance. And sometimes it's just a matter of reaching out to your community, to the people at the Military Family Center, to veterans groups, and to counselors like Robert. Thank you both so much. I mean, the work you do is invaluable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We've been talking to Robert Cox, who is a veteran, and he's also a counselor here at CommQuest, and Tammi Gaynor, and she's from the Pegasus Farm Equestrian Center, and she's the director there. And also what we've been focusing on today, which is the Military Family Center. She is the MFC, as they say, programs director. Thank you both for being here. I would like to also thank our audience for listening in today. And if you would like to find out more about the programs that we offer here at CommQuest, very multifaceted. We do social outreach, we addiction recovery, mental health. All of these things are in our purview. I would encourage you to go to CommQuest.org. And once again, that's CommQuest.org. Thank you very much for listening to the Hope Discovered podcast by CommQuest.